Recently, a lot of people have been gushing about Spy Family, and for good reasons. It's a great and heartfelt show that can appeal to, well, anyone. From its lovable characters to great action scenes, great humor. Really, this show has it all. Originally, I was planning to make a video on why this show works so well, but I scrapped it. Really, there's just better videos on the matter on this website, and the video I wrote overall just felt messy, but I still wanted to fulfill the promise of making a video on this show, so I decided on a different approach. I'm gonna explore my brief thoughts on each of the episodes that are out so far, and yeah, hopefully this will go well. Without any further ado, let's begin. We're starting off good, as I gotta say. This is a very solid first episode, introducing us to a lot of concepts that the show will later expand upon. We get to see Lloyd, or more accurately I suppose, Twilight's skill as a spy, Lloyd's backstory, Anya's backstory, you name it. And it's all executed wonderfully. We get to see Anya and Lloyd bounce off of each other here, and it is great. First off, we get to see their first day together, and oh man does it feel like their first day together. It's very awkward and I love it. Especially when comparing it to the later episodes, but we'll get there when we get there. And that last scene at the end where Lloyd feels so happy after Anya passed the bar exam, you can feel the growing attachment there. I guess for one thing, I don't really like how Anya messing around with Lloyd's equipment just so happens to exactly tell the enemy where they are. It's a bit contrived. I know it's probably not supposed to be taken too seriously, but this comes right before the emotional reveal of Anya's backstory. But yeah, that's all I have to say about episode 1. A pretty good way to start out the series. And now, let's see episode 2. Yet another great episode to add on to the list. We get to see Yor for the first time here, some great world building, sweet moments, good actions, and great characters. Yor's co-workers provide a great contrast to her relationship with the family that we're gonna see later on, and even with Lloyd in this episode. Whereas her co-workers would continuously judge her and often try to shame her, Lloyd is actually being supportive here and compliments her for her hard work and all that stuff. Yor having to find a husband to drive away suspicion on her makes sense, as this is the 50s or something, and everyone just expects you to be married and all that, so this is something completely believable. I love the scene where Yor feels out of place and not normal and all that. It makes sense as she spent a lot of her childhood working a shady job, so understandably, she wouldn't really know how to socialize. That, and her keeping a lot of secrets causes others to be suspicious of her, which circles back to the previous talking point. And speaking of that shady job,
監査局のブレなん時間ですよね。大変恐縮なのですが、息の根止めさせていただいてもよろしいでしょうか。
コードネーム茨姫。女は殺し屋だった。
this is your secret identity. We saw Twilight in the previous episode, and now it's time for us to meet Thorn Princess. Your secret is that she is an assassin, and we get to see that in action here. I really like this scene, as it shows the secret side of Yor, how she handles being an assassin and all that. I definitely want to see more of Thorn Princess later down the road. Maybe there's already more in the manga. I don't know. No manga spoilers in the comments, please. And the final thing that I want to mention here is the proposal scene at the end. It's sweet seeing Lloyd propose to Yor with the grenade bomb after losing the ring, and both of their inner monologues are just so poetic. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this one, so moving on. Now we finally get to see the family together for the first time, and it's great. As this is Yor's first day being a part of the family, you can definitely sense the awkwardness, but at the same time, you can feel the excitement that Anya has for finally having a mother, so that's neat. Aside from that, this is an episode that I don't have much to say about. I mean, I like the scene where Anya draws Lloyd as a spy and Yor as an assassin, as to both Lloyd and Yor, this just looks like a random drawing a kid made. But Anya is worried because she's a telepath and doesn't want her secret to be exposed. I like the part where Lloyd contemplates how, throughout the many years that he's been a spy, this is the first time that he has no plan about anything. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't get me wrong, it's a good episode, but really, all I can say is that it's good for developing the family. So, next up, it is finally time for the interview. First off, the first bit where the school is already rolling out people during the walk to the interview was just hilarious. I mean, who the heck would actually think of bringing in multiple pairs of clothes to prepare for the occasion? I'm gonna tell you who. An elegant spy. Speaking of which, I love the housemaster here. Such an elegant teacher. Next up, we get to the actual interview, and this is where the episode gets a bit more serious. First off, Swan is a guy that you love to hate. I mean, insulting and taking advantage of the fact that Yor is not Anya's biological mother, that's just disgusting. And this is what ultimately crashes down the interview. Yor is understandably angry, and Lloyd is also starting to lose composure. And here is where you really get to see that, despite constantly trying to deny this, Lloyd genuinely cares for his family. It's something that will get explored more as we go along. So let's just move along to the next episode where we get to see just that. This episode is honestly one of my favorites in the entire show thus far. We all know that they will, in fact, pass, as how is the story gonna continue if they fail, but nevertheless, I still appreciate the fact that Anya only got in because someone else withdrew. It doesn't really feel contrived, at least not to me, as this is a high-profile school that's probably gonna put a lot of pressure on kids, so other withdrawing is something I can buy. And I also enjoy seeing the other characters react to this uncertainty, even if, as a viewer, it's not exactly hard to see that Anya will indeed get accepted. But anyways, the main bulk of the episode is the family celebrating the fact that they got in, and it is just wholesome. The thing I like about this part is that, as I said, you can feel that Lloyd genuinely cares for Anya. It's this wholesomeness that is one of the main reasons that I absolutely love this show. This might be a fake family, but the love is real. And this whole episode, you can say, doesn't need to exist. You can make the argument that the whole waiting list thing is unnecessary and that they should have just said that Anya passed and move along with the plot already. After all, the thing that they spent a large amount of this episode dedicated was just a few short panels in the manga. But I just disagree with that. Not only is this episode great for developing the family, well, Lloyd and Anya anyways, Yor was just kind of a drunken disaster here. But also, this episode is a great showcase for the animation of the show. A lot of this episode is entirely unique to the anime, and oh boy does it make use of being an anime. I'm not trying to make out manga as a lesser medium here, that's not what I'm really going for, but what I am trying to say here is that these mediums have their own strengths and weaknesses, so it's nice that this adaptation is making use of the fact. And yeah, overall, this episode was just a fun ride. I had a smile on my face the entire way through, and it's something that I can rewatch any day of the week. But after that nice celebration, time to get back to school. And as I'm writing this, I realized that this is kinda meta because school is starting for me soon. I realize that I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but this episode is also great. We get to see more of the whys. I love the scene where Yor protects Anya. This circles back to what I said about Yor's insecurities. If this were her coworkers, then they would have judged her to no end over how she can break a pumpkin with bare hands. But to Anya, this is just the coolest thing ever. I love the scene where Yor contemplates about being Anya's mother. Like I said, even if this is a pretend family, the love is real. Yor genuinely cares for Anya. After all, throughout her life, she and Lloyd have been the one the most accepting of her, so it makes sense. And the school stuff is just absolute comedy gold. I don't know what else to say, these scenes are just hilarious, so let's move on, I suppose. More Great Eden Academy shenanigans. What can I say? It's great. Becky is a fun character to accompany Anya. Damien and Co were great. Damien bullying Anya while simultaneously having a crush on her is hilarious. And then the family stuff here is also great. You're reminding Lloyd to not be too harsh to Anya is nice, as she's just a kid at the end of the day. And Yor doesn't understand all of this pressure that Lloyd is putting on Anya, which makes sense, considering that this mission is confidential, of course. What can I say? This family just bounce off of each other very well. Lloyd is there to carry on the mission and be strict from time to time, but also be supportive in other times. Yor is there to remind Lloyd to not put too much pressure on Anya and generally just provide what Lloyd can, and Anya is the string that ties them all together. Just this sweet, lovable heart of the family. But that's all I have to say for this one, so next up. Here we finally get to see Yor's brother, and he's great. You can see that he really cares for Yor, almost to a fault. Scratch that, definitely to a fault. He can be overprotective over Yor, and this does lead to a bit of a problematic plot point, but I'll save that for the next episode. For now, I'll say that it's sweet seeing the flashback where Yor takes care of Yuri, and Yuri really looks up to her. Again, I'm saving the problematic stuff for later. And while we're on the topic, I also like that we get to see Wise's enemy here, the secret police. The way that that Lloyd discovers Yuri's secret is also pretty clever. No one in this family is fully honest to each other. They all have secrets that they keep. And aside from that, the Briars having a drinking problem is pretty funny, and I like the way this episode ends. I mean, just look at it and tell me it isn't funny. But I guess I should move on to the problematic stuff now. Before we address the elephant in the room, I should mention that this episode starts off in a similar way as to how the previous episode ends, so that's funny. But yeah, let's now address said elephant in the room. Yuri here pretty much wishes that he's the one married to Yor, and yeah, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to spend too long on this, just figured I'd mention it, but the episode itself is great, putting all of that aside. As we see Yor worrying about being a bad wife, fitting with the whole thing about how she feels like she doesn't belong or out of place sometimes. I like the part where Lloyd regrets suspecting Yor, and that part in the end where Lloyd is supportive is sweet. But that's all I have to say for this one, so moving on. Aside from showing off Damien's inferiority complex, this episode is mostly comedy-based, so your enjoyment of the episode really depends on how much of the humor works for you. Personally, it's kind of inconsistent because sometimes I can watch this episode and just laugh along, and then other times I'd just be bored while watching. My enjoyment of this episode kinda depends on my mood, so I can't exactly give a definitive take on it. And since there's not much more for me to say here, let's just move on. Another good episode for Anya here. I like seeing struggles of Anya and Lloyd so that Anya can get a Stella, and when she does finally get that Stella, it is heartwarming. Side note, I just realized that the animation that plays when Anya gets that Stella, it kind of reminds me of whenever Ash Ketchum gets a gym badge or whatever. That said, the pacing of this episode is a bit weird. It kind of feels like two episodes just crammed into one. The part where Anya gets a Stella and the part where the school reacts to it kind of feel like two different episodes. I don't know, it's a bit weird. But aside from that, yeah, still a pretty fun episode. And next up will be the last episode we'll be talking about in this video, so let's just get into it. Yet another sweet episode to add on to the pile. Everyone gets their time to shine here. Lloyd deals with an insane amount of missions handed to him, and still manages to make it through. Anya helps Lloyd with her mind-reading power, and Yor, well, it's great. And the neighbors being suspicious of the family is a nice way to add even more pressure to Lloyd. I know I might be a broken record now, but this episode is yet another great one, and a great send-off to the first half of the season. Well, I guess that's my thoughts on episodes 1 to 12 of Spy Family, or Spy X Family, or by multiplication symbol family. I don't really have much of a conclusion after all of that. If you still haven't watched the show, I recommend giving it a shot, and yeah, that's it. This was a bit more of a relaxing video to work on, as after all of those amphibia videos, I kinda want some smaller scale videos before you get into the big projects again. But that's all I have to say for now, so until next time, thanks for watching.